Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel, That Model Railway Guy. As you can see beside me, work on the Modular Model Railway is still progressing. I'm pretty busy with that at the moment, but I thought today I'd just do a quick Q&A to answer some questions from my members, as it's been a while since I've done this. So, I put out a post on the members feed asking for their questions about the channel, or just model railways in general, and today I'm going to go through some of them and answer them to the best of my ability. So, let's get started, shall we? The first question comes from Mr. Chris 160, who says, definitely one of the best model railway builders I've come across this year. Thank you for inspiring me to get deep into 009 layout building. Oh, well, thank you. I'm glad you've been enjoying the videos, and I'm glad that you've got into 009 narrow gauge modelling too. The actual question is, what part during your layout builds do you get the most satisfaction / inspiration from once completed? For me, I think it would have to be static grass. It often takes quite a while to get to that stage with doing all the foundation work first, which is something I can very much relate with at the moment. But once you put that first base layer of grass down, that's when, to me, it starts to feel like a proper model railway. I think it's actually also quite a quick step too. Really, all you do is put down some PVA and then sprinkle the grass over the top. But it really tends to transform the layout, so it makes a huge difference, and I think the fact that it can go from looking a bit like a building site to looking like a nice countryside scene in the space of half an hour is something that really appeals to me, so yeah. And after that point, you're really doing all the fun stuff too, or rather the more creative stuff with choosing where to add extra details and foliage and all that. So yeah, I'd say that's really the one step that stands out that I always look forward to doing. The next question comes from Mitchell Paradise, who asks, how have you enjoyed the YouTube side of things so far? I'm really enjoying it. I never really expected the channel to get this big. I mean, I kind of hoped it would, but it's still a kind of constant surprise how many people subscribe and watch the videos, and those numbers just continue to grow, so yeah. It is a lot of work. I think there's this assumption that making videos is really easy, and in some ways it is. But if you want to make high quality, really interesting videos that people are going to want to watch on a weekly basis, then there's a lot of extra work that goes into making those videos look professional, and generally any modelling I do as well takes twice as long if I'm trying to film it as well. But yeah, that said, I really do enjoy the community that we have here on YouTube in general. It seems to be quite positive for the most part, which is kind of odd for YouTube. But certainly on this channel, it's not often that I come across people who are trying to stir things up or just generally being a bit mean. So yeah, the one thing that I always wanted to do with this channel is show that building a model railway really isn't that hard if you break it down into simple steps. And I feel like I'm achieving that with the layout build videos, where you can see literally everything that happens from it being a blank baseboard to a finished layout. So yeah, generally it's been really good, and as long as I have the time to keep on making videos and people still want to watch them, I guess I'll keep on making them. Mitchell also asked, as the channel continues to grow, have you thought about any goals or projects that you'd like to do once you can afford to spend more and more time and resources on it? It's probably not that interesting for most people, but for me, the ultimate goal would be having a dedicated space where I can have layouts set up permanently to film things, or even just a dedicated modelling workbench. I'm always very envious of people who have their layouts in the loft or in special built sheds, but obviously the point of the Modular Model Railway was that I can't have it set up all the time, and so it does have to pack away. But yeah, a dedicated studio space almost would be very, very nice, but I can't see that happening anytime soon. In terms of projects for the future, I have loads of ideas for videos and new series, and I have a rough idea of what the next 2 years will look like on the channel in terms of scheduling, although we did actually just add another project into that this week, which I've now got to figure out how to squeeze in. But yeah, there is one really big project which I've been wanting to do for absolutely ages. It predates the channel almost, but it would be a massive undertaking and a huge amount of work. And so I think if it does ever happen, it would be at a point where I'm not making weekly videos, just because there's no way I'd be able to do both, really. But yes, it's a very fun idea, something very, very different, but I'm not going to tell you what it is because I would still like to do it one day. Jacob Klein has a little bit of a difficult question for me. I don't know if you'll be able to answer this one, maybe some other members can, but what are some good American companies I can purchase trains or modelling supplies from? I'll be mainly doing HO or N-scale model builds. Yes, you're right, Jacob. I am going to have a bit of trouble answering this one, given that I really don't have any experience with American model railway companies. The only thing I think I can say really, and it's perhaps a bit of an obvious answer, but that is to check out Rapido if you haven't already. I know they're mainly based in Canada, I think, and the UK section is sort of an offshoot from that. But if their American models are anything like the ones we've seen over here in the UK, then I imagine they must be pretty good. For modelling supplies and scenery, I think Woodland Scenics is an American company, and that stuff all just gets imported into the UK and around the world. So yeah, I mean, I use their products all over my layouts for foliage and trees and all sorts. So yeah, that would be my recommendation for scenery. But yeah, like I said, it's not really an area I have any expertise in at all. So if you're watching and you have some recommendations for Jacob, stick them down in the comments below. And now, before we get to the rest of the questions, let's take a quick break to watch some trains run round, shall we? Now, just before we continue, I just wanted to remind you that all the questions for this Q&A today were submitted by my channel members, and you can become one too. Check out the benefits you get by clicking the join button below this video, and it'll show you what you get on each tier. But essentially, it's stuff like this members Q&A or special running sessions, and of course, lots of behind the scenes content. At the moment, I'm posting a lot of the progress I'm making on the modular layout while I'm filming the next set of videos. And also, when that new series launches, members will be the first to see all the new episodes. So if you enjoy the layout builds, then being a member is the best way to see more of that. It starts from just £1.99, so like I always say, it's less than the price of a coffee. And again, you can click that join button below. Don't don't worry, you don't have to pay anything immediately, but it will just show you what you get on each level. Anyway, let's get back to some questions, and we've got a couple here from Nigel Cole, who asks, how do you go about planning your layouts? Do you sketch it out on paper first? I'm particularly interested in how you went about planning the modules and sections for the modular layouts. Right, well, I generally don't sit down and design full layouts, but it's often down to the restrictions of the actual project. So go for tin, for example. That had to fit inside a suitcase, but I knew I wanted to have a station on it and something to fill the middle of the layout, so I kind of designed it itself. The modular layout, on the other hand, I always knew that was going to be a heritage railway, and so that meant straight away it was going to be a single line track. And then I just started thinking about heritage railways that I'd been to and what things I wanted to incorporate. So again, I wanted a station with 2 platforms, so that was simple, plus an engine shed and a couple of sidings so I could do some shunting. And yeah, basically it was a case of combining all those elements in the most streamlined way. I don't really use computer programs all that much, other than for checking measurements really, but by then usually I know what the actual design is going to be. It's more for just figuring out how long a siding or a loop can be. So yeah, occasionally I will sketch things out as well, just by hand, but most of all it's done in my head, just kind of figuring things out in the background really. With the modular layout in particular, most of the work for this went into designing the actual modules themselves, because that was really the foundation of the project. I wanted to get that right because the rest of the project sort of hinged on that idea working and being easy to set up. So yeah, having the end plates so I could match up all the scenery meant I had to design everything to be symmetrical so that all the modules were interchangeable. But yeah, once I'd figured out the standards I was going to use and deciding where the track was actually going to go was kind of the least of my worries in a way. Nigel also asks, how did you get into building model railways and what inspired you? Well, as a kid, I was obsessed with Thomas the Tank Engine. I'm old enough that I remember the original model series being on TV. And so I think for my 4th birthday, my parents got me a Hornby Thomas set, and my grandparents gave me another loco. It was the red Ginty, I think, with a few wagons. And yeah, things just kind of grew from there. I kind of fell away from it for a while just because I had other priorities, but it was always something I knew I wanted to come back to. And then sort of like 3 things happened all in the space of like a few weeks. Firstly, I visited a couple of heritage railways, having not really been to one for about several years at that point, and that kind of got the gears turning a bit. That sort of led me into looking into Hornby again and kind of the model railway scene and discovering the Pecketts from Hornby. And they were really the sort of loco that I had always wanted to run and build layouts around, rather than the big express engines that manufacturers seemed to favour when I was younger, and still do today to a certain extent. But I think the Hatton's Barclay and the P-Class had just come out at that time too, so I could see there was a bit of a trend towards these smaller locos, and the detail was just worlds ahead from what I was used to as a kid as well. And then literally like a few weeks later as well, I went on a trip to Wales to visit various narrow gauge railways there because it was something that I'd always wanted to do. Again, that gave me plenty of inspiration. And it was sort of around the time that 009 was just starting to take off as a ready-to-run scale as well. So I remember looking at some 009 stuff in the Festiniog Railway shop and thinking it would be nice to model that someday. I think around then it was only the Hellion, Linton and Barnstable stuff that was really available, but yeah, now of course we've got lots of lovely Welsh narrow gauge stuff from Bachmann as well. And so yeah, it was really a combination of several different things happening all at once that kind of got me back into the hobby and gave me some inspiration to do something about it. And so yeah, I also think that starting the channel was a big help too, even though that kind of came a little bit later on, but I sort of felt like if I started a project, I kind of had to finish it, like I was obligated to kind of not leave it hanging. And yeah, things just kind of continued to grow, and so I got more involved in the hobby as a result of that. And so yeah, it's a combination of a lot of little different things really. GWR got in touch to ask, how do you store your locos? So I really need to store out my loco storage because it's getting a bit crowded. Nice problem to have, I guess. But essentially on the wall, I have a big cabinet with several levels on, which is where all the 00 gauge locos get stored between running sessions. Like I said, it's a bit crowded now. There are some locos in there that kind of don't really need to be in there, like some of the older models that aren't DCC fitted. And then over time, random wagons have kind of ended up in there as well too. So I do need to have a bit of a tidy up really, and maybe give them their own space. But yeah, in some ways I would like to get another display case really, like a long one that sort of goes on the wall that I can display locos with a few carriages and as a train. I think that would be really cool, but all the cabinets like that seem to be really expensive, so I'll probably hold off on that for a while. In complete contrast, the 009 locos have a much less fancy storage situation. Because the suitcase layout is more portable, the locos and all the rolling stock actually reside inside a box file with a padded foam interior to protect them and the detail. And so this makes it really easy for transporting all the locos to an exhibition, for example, without having to put them all back in the original boxes. GWR has also sent in a video suggestion with video idea how to build a budget model shunting layout at home. I mean, I kind of already did that with Pickwick Yard when I first started this channel. That is a little shunting layout and I didn't really spend a huge amount on it. So in some ways, I have kind of already covered that. On the other hand, I would really like to do a series of videos about modelling on a budget, especially with the current economic climate and loco prices rising rapidly as well. Like I said, a lot of my early videos were like that before I started on the more ambitious projects, and so it would be nice to go back to that someday. And yeah, I have some really great tips and ideas that I would love to share, with it all sort of kind of culminating in building a layout for the absolute minimal cost. But yeah, I think the main thing from stopping me doing that at the moment is the modular layout. I really need to get this finished because it's been dragging on for ages, and I mean, I did very little work on it last year at all. So there's a pretty hard deadline for getting this done now, which will all be revealed in the series that's coming soon. So yeah. This year, the focus is really on getting this completed as much as possible. But, you know, once that's done, I won't be looking to start another big project for a while. So a more budget-friendly series is definitely something I would love to do. Finally, we have a question from Kelly Ashford Trains, who asks, what is it about model steam engines that makes you love and want to buy them so much? Is it because you find it too hard to resist purchasing them? It's not so much about buying new locos for me. I think if that was the case, I would be getting every new loco that came onto the market. But for example, last year, I only got 2 steam engines in 00 gauge, the 9F and the Victory. But to be perfectly honest, the 9F was very much an impulse buy. I guess the reason I like model steam engines is the same reason I like real steam engines, in that I find certain designs interesting, or just the way a loco looks sort of really appeals to me. Usually it's little industrial engines or stuff that can be seen at heritage railways, and I suppose you model what you're interested in, and I've always been interested in preservation rather than just railways in general. So yeah, the locos I tend to buy these days are usually things that are preserved in some way. There are of course outliers in that, but you know, for example, my version of the Flying Scotsman is of how it was preserved when I saw it back in 2004. I like the Hornby Austerities and the J94s because that's what I was used to seeing at heritage railways. I have the Caledonian 812 in its preserved livery, and I mean, I'm looking forward to the Rapido Hunslets because a lot of the models that they're doing are ones that have been preserved. So yeah, for me, it's definitely a case of wanting to recreate stuff I've seen in real life rather than just getting loads of steam engines to build up a collection. And so that brings us neatly to the end of this video. I do just want to say a really big thank you to all the channel members who submitted questions for this video, and like I said earlier on, keep an eye out on the members feed for more behind the scenes updates from the Modular Model Railway. There's still a lot to do on this, so yeah, be sure to watch out for that. In the meantime, thank you so much to everyone for watching this video. Something a little bit different today, but I hope you still enjoyed it, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!